After literal years of waiting and clamoring, it's finally here! Bloodborne on PC, I mean PS1. Totally a PS1 game. Look away, Sony. This fan game did what we've been asking you to do for years. BloodbornePSX is absolutely one of this year's highlights. Originally revealed in January of last year, fans of the original game, myself included, have been eagerly waiting for its release. It scratches the itch that most rumor mills and hype trains won't shut up about: Bloodborne on PC. It's honestly gotten so bad that someone made a rumor generator because it became a meme in and of itself. Misplaced hopium aside, BloodbornePSX is a special case. It's not the PC port we originally wanted, but damn does it prove us otherwise. Despite being based on an existing IP, it's a great game on its own. But to properly put things into perspective, let's talk about the original game. As most gamers and scholars know, Bloodborne is a fast-paced action RPG developed by the same Japanese company that reinvigorated gamer rage compilations and put games journalists on suicide watch. You play as Jean Bloodborne, a French man who's trying to survive in the pessimism-ridden streets of a post-Brexit Britain. You hit and dodge your way through multiple locations, some of which by accident, whilst meeting the locals along the way. One of Bloodborne's defining features is its fast-paced battles with mechanics that revolve around it. These mechanics incentivize players to be proactive or aggressive instead of being reactive or defensive. This turns battles into a deadly dance of back and forth where each strike and dodge matter. And like this game's brother Dark Souls, difficulty can range from challenging to fuck against a wide variety of monsters such as vicious beasts, eldritch horrors, and the British. Even the weakest of enemies shouldn't be taken lightly as they're skilled at causing a lack of existence. Oddly, it's the human enemies that have mastered this skill, making their battles some of the most memorable encounters in the game. If that wasn't enough, it also has DLC, the only DLC expansion which adds onto an already amazing game. If you thought that the base game is hard, eerie, and depressing, the DLC doubles down on that. For reference, the expansion provides insight to the lore and events that surround the base game. It's also capable of breaking a soul and providing emotional damage. If the morose story won't get you, the boss fights will, as the DLC is infamous for containing the hardest fights in the entire game. Good luck! Bias aside, Bloodborne is seen as one of the greatest games of all time. It has everything other titles want or struggle to achieve. A simple yet unique story that hooks players despite barely mentioning it.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood.
Blood. Blood. Blood.
Gameplay mechanics that anyone can pick up but hard to master. An experience that provides an actual sense of accomplishment. Engaging encounters from the weakest of enemies to the hardest of bosses. Interesting weapons that function so differently from each other that they warrant separate playthroughs. A wonderful expansion that extends an already amazing game. Success throughout the years despite the lack of an in-game store, microtransactions, or NFTs. An epic orchestral soundtrack that puts the region that created the genre to shame. The existence of a cum dungeon. And last but not least, a dedicated blood-starved fanbase that continues to support the game and spread word of it. Fan-fucking-tastic, right? But now this begs the question. What about the Demake? To call the Demake a technological marvel is an understatement. Full props to Lilith Walter because she was able to capture what we know about the game and was able to scale it down within the limitations of the technology she was trying to emulate. Remember, despite its release in 2015, Bloodborne has a lot of moving parts and intricate details. It would have been easier for her to simplify them and move on. Instead, she pulled through and implemented them. She even put downgrade options to the performance in case we really want to have the authentic PS1 experience. That's fucking dedication. The Demake has two audiences. For new players, the Demake is about fighting through the eldritch horrors of a post-Brexit Britain. Help is limited and you must overcome the odds and die trying. For veterans and returning players, the Demake is a nostalgia hit about fighting through the eldritch horrors of a post-Brexit Britain. How help is limited and you must overcome the odds and die trying. For a fan Demake, everything's on point, from the presentation all the way to the game's performance. The game starts on a low frame rate and visual fidelity. You can change these in the options, but it's highly advised that you don't, as it can ruin the immersion. The graphics themselves are reminiscent of early 3D titles and nails the presentation. The models are pixelated and low res. It even has dithering, model wobbling, and texture pop-in. If anything, it adds to the dark, brooding, and desolate atmosphere of the game. The world of Bloodborne is split into multiple sections via loading screens. It makes sense as the original console wouldn't be able to handle Bloodborne's gigantic and interconnected world. The control scheme is based on the original SCPH-1010 gamepad, meaning no analog controls. While this may feel primitive, every button is assigned functions that make sense. It may not be as efficient as the original, but they make up for it with proper in-game menus. These menus remind me of early survival horror games and how they handle in-game items. Very apt considering the large amount of items a hunter can have. Game audio was also remade to fit both the sound specs and sound quality of the time. You'd think that this would make the audio incomprehensible, but nope, it adds to the game's immersion. As a Bloodborne fan game, it's just as grand. It successfully incorporates the main gameplay loop of the original game. Despite the design choices that aim in downgrading the game, they don't take away from the fast-paced action Bloodborne is known for. Just because you can make things run slower doesn't mean the difficulty is diminished. I'd say the difficulty is nearly identical to the original. Locations are more or less the same except for a few things that I'll discuss later. This means knowledge of the game can transfer between the two. Exploration is still rewarded. Finding ways to be in places you aren't supposed to be is not punished. That said, don't do what I did, which was following certain speedrun strats. I don't know how to do certain sections as intended because of this. The Demake has successfully captured the look and feel the original was going for, although I will say that the low fidelity graphics accentuates this even further. But what I'm absolutely fascinated by is this game's inclusion of the minute details, the tips and tricks and information the community has discovered throughout the years. These include, but not limited to, weapon upgrades, and the Winter Lantern. Despite how close it is to the original game, BloodbornePSX does have a few changes outside of the whole Demake approach and aesthetic. For starters, the scope is smaller as the Demake only contains content up until the Tomb of Eden. For the uninitiated, that's 2 boss fights and 1 primary area. Compared to the original game, that's not a lot, so the Demake makes up for it by adding new locations and its own take on the endgame, which includes a completely new boss fight. There are new lamp locations to make up for the split world design. This also helps make the world feel bigger than it originally is. Not all weapons are available, but what we have are some solid choices. It also makes sense to have a smaller weapon count since the game isn't that long to begin with. There are a few new cutscenes for certain events which didn't have them in the original. This game also had the ghastly idea of introducing the 40 Insight Winter Lantern for endgame. The Winter Lantern will hunt and chase you throughout certain parts of the world while doing its hunting off-key singing. Unless you know what you're doing, do not, I repeat, do not engage this abomination. It will cause you a lack of existence. Play this game. Whether you're a fan of Bloodborne or someone new, give this a shot. It's also free, so there goes that excuse. Now if you'll excuse me, I'll be waiting for the release of the cart game. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi there! If you like the content, consider leaving a like and subscribing. If you want to provide further support, I have a tip jar on my Ko-fi page and a Twitter at KenAthomos. Links are in the description. Take care!